Coming up on Kochie's Business Builders, the best tax structures for your business, how to make the most of this year's deductions, plus slashing red tape, strategies you need to know. G'day and welcome to a special episode of Kochie's Business Builders, where we'll be taking a deeper look at the issues facing small business owners in 2023. Hey, it's tax time. That time of year again. It sends shivers down the spine of many an Aussie business owner, but it doesn't have to be that way. This week, we'll be shining a spotlight on all things tax related, and to help us do that, my co-host and tax guru, Elinor Kasapidis, joins us now. Elinor is the Senior Manager Tax Policy at CPA Australia. She is responsible for the CPA's tax policy and advocacy work. And before she joined CPA, she spent more than 15 years at the tax office. So she knows the ins and outs of the tax system. Elinor, thanks for your time. It's that time of year every business owner goes, oh, it's tax time. How can we get over this sort of misconception that everything comes to an end at this time of year?
Well, the tax return is often a really important point for businesses. They sit back, they make their appointment with the tax agent, come in with their shoebox full of receipts and say, what am I going to do with this? But in reality, it shouldn't be so stressful, and tax actually happens throughout the year. So when you're thinking about how do I set myself up, it really is around how are you reporting, what advice are you getting, and how do you make those changes and investments throughout the year to make it easier at the end.
Okay, the investments throughout the year, it's getting easier and easier to invest in tax administration.
Yep.
Through your MYOB, through your Xero, through your QuickBooks. Is that the start of getting ourselves organised?
Definitely. So tech and digital is the way. So think about it in terms of reporting. It's like an app where you know your numbers, you can see what's going through, and especially if you're registered for things like GST or you have employees, it keeps you on top of those things so it doesn't get out of control.
So a lot of it is discipline on you, the business owner, isn't it?
For sure, and that's that upfront investment. So when you're entering into your business, or maybe you've started and you're not quite sure where to go next, making things digital, e-invoicing is another one because that keeps track of everything. And then at the end of the year, you're not actually trying to panic and reconstruct things or try to find receipts that you've lost along the way.
If you're still using the shoebox, you've got a lot to learn, don't you?
It is the 21st century and there's a lot of software out there that can help, and a lot of it is now starting to incorporate AI and all sorts of tips and tricks to help you along the way. And in fact, the ATO has a digital strategy where they're starting to work with the accounting software providers and tax agents to start to highlight areas that you might be not quite getting it right, or maybe you need to be putting in some numbers that you're missing out on.
It is so important. That's got to be your first step, doesn't it? To digitise your tax. Let's go back to the basics though. How important is choosing the right structure for your business to help you with your tax?
Really important, not just for your tax, but just for your business in general. So if you're, for example, a sole trader, you're going to be earning income as an individual, and you think about those marginal tax rates, they get higher the better you do. For a small business, company tax rate is now 25%. So you compare that, or often you might think about a trust if you have other people that you want to distribute some of the profits to. So when you think about all of those different elements, setting it up in the right way is important. And also then if you want to bring on investors, or maybe you want to sell your business later on, different structures are going to help you with your tax.
Do particular structures suit particular businesses?
Every business is unique and different, and especially nowadays. So if you think about, I guess, an R&D, for example, that you want to be an entrepreneur and perhaps spin off something later on, you might be thinking more a corporate type of structure. Whereas if you're just working for one or maybe a few different businesses and providing your own services, it may just be easier to stay as an individual sole trader.
Right, but again, have a partner, a professional, an accountant, they can advise you all of it. Terrific tips there. Elinor has a lot more where they came from straight after the break. Don't go away. Coming up, tax debts. The ATO is cracking down on businesses with unpaid debts. If that's you, find out what you need to know. Welcome back to Kochie's Business Builders. Now, small businesses were among the most affected by the pandemic. So during the height of COVID and the ensuing lockdowns, the ATO decided to go easy on us and not pursue businesses with past tax debts. But despite the rising cost of living and inflationary pressures, that amnesty is now over. And the tax office is back to chasing small business debt. So Elinor, if you're a small business with a tax debt, time to get your head out of the sand, isn't it? How should you be approaching this?
The ATO is back on the beat, like you said, and it really is about having that conversation, making sure that your lodgements are up to date and your payments start to go under a payment plan or something like that, because the consequences of not engaging with the tax office, if you've got a company, directed penalty notices, there are all sorts of things that can cause problems. So really, the main thing is talk to your tax agent, talk to your accountant, look at your cash flow, look at your assets, and then talk to the tax office about a payment arrangement that you can afford.
Yep.
The big thing, though, the ATO says is if you're not up to date with your lodgements, then you can't get a payment arrangement. And also, once you're in it, you still have to keep up to date with all of your subsequent lodgement and payments. So it's really, again, taking that step back and remembering you still have future tax to pay and not just thinking about the debt that you have at that time.
But the tax office is approachable.
Yeah.
That's the thing to understand, is that because I think a lot of business owners are scared of the tax office saying, I'm getting behind, I'm just going to hide. I won't say anything in case they overlook me. They won't, because they've got great computer systems. But they do understand your business, don't they?
Yeah, putting your head in the sand is not an option. Really walking away from your debts, things will only get worse. It can lead to bankruptcy or insolvency. The tax office actually has some very reasonable payment arrangements in place. And in fact, if it's under $100,000, you can do it over the phone in most instances, just an automated service. So really it's about being upfront and honest. And the other thing is the tax office doesn't want to drive anyone out of business. Small business is important for Australia. They want things to keep going. So how do you get the best for both?
Are there any support services for business owners in this regard as well?
So sometimes, you can get general advice from different, organisations and even the insolvency and turnaround organisations and things. Also talking to the bank, because once again, with your tax agent or your accountant, they can look at what the tax office can offer, or would it be better to consolidate it into a bank loan, for example. So once again, it's about options, and you as the small business owner are in control of those decisions, and it's up to you to do what is best for yourself and best for your business.
Yeah, that's the issue though, is it? Because a lot of small business owners are worried about keeping their business afloat, and they put tax in that administration pile that, hey, I'll try and get around to it when I've got spare time, and you never do.
And that's so the wrong way to do it. And we talked earlier about the digital investment in the tech. Especially if you have employees with superannuation guarantee or employee withholding, the ATO is coming down hard if you're not paying your employees on time and properly. So that's something you can't let go.
Because it's not your money.
It's not your money, exactly. And it's not the government's money, it's actually your employees' money. So they're really tough on that. And then as well with GST, that's those obligations throughout the year. And then when it comes to your own income taxes, that's where you should be paying pay-as-you-go instalment. So I think it's really, don't see the ATO as a lender. It's actually that you want to stay on top of and in time with your obligations so that you don't get yourself into trouble.
Right. So how do you streamline that? So a bookkeeper is a great first step, isn't it? And bookkeepers can get you organised, but then it's better to have a qualified accountant who gives the advice over the top.
That's right. And so bookkeepers can do activity statements and GST, and you want your tax agent, usually a qualified accountant, to be making sure all the codes are right. So again, the setup of your tech is really important. And then when it comes to income tax, looking at all those incentives and bonuses that are available and how to depreciate things properly. Or if you've sold something, how do you treat it for capital gains tax? It's all of those things that they can help you with.
It's building a team around you.
Certainly.
That's well worth it. Yeah. Elinor, stay with us because you've got a lot more knowledge to impart. Coming up, everything you need to know about tax deductions for your small business. Do you want to know what it takes to build a successful brand? Our First Act podcast shares the origin tales and inspirational stories of Australia's most innovative entrepreneurs. Hosted by Kochie's Business Builders editors Sess Busby and Adam Bubb, these frank conversations take a deep dive into the genesis of success. It's a must-listen for business owners. Welcome back to Kochie's Business Builders. Today we're chatting with Elinor Kasapidis from CPA Australia about all things tax for small business. Now, Elinor, tax time is approaching. It's time to make the most of any expenses and deductions, especially when the instant asset write-off is changing as well. So firstly, what do we need to know about the change to the instant asset write-off?
So up until the 30th of June 23, it's all temporary full expensing. So you can invest in your business, buy what's called a capital asset and claim the whole amount, whereas in the past you had to depreciate it. From the 1st of July 2023 to 24, any assets under 20,000 can be instantly written off under the new announcement from government. So once again, it's just enabling small business to continue to invest, and there's that higher threshold. What it does mean though is that you can't just write off a car like you could have under temporary full expensing, and it does have to be installed and ready for use. So you need to have it in your business by those cut-off dates.
Right. What are some of the other deductions that we tend to overlook as small business owners?
The general principle, I think, is if you're using or if you're spending money to earn your business income, then it's deductible. So I think it's not so much overlooking it, it's about, do you have the right records? Do you have the right receipts? Have you classified them properly? And so things like you can have income averaging for artists, or there are different kinds of tweaks in the system. But fundamentally for small business, if you spend it on your business, you can deduct it. And that makes things really simple.
I remember talking to commissioner after commissioner, and they say in all 90% of tax disputes, they win that dispute not on the deduction itself, but the lack of record keeping and problems in record keeping. So it all boils down to that, does it?
Yeah, and really that is, as a small business owner, that's your responsibility, because even your accountant, your tax agent can't help you if you don't have the records. So when the tax office comes and has a look, once again with digital, if it's all on the spreadsheet, if you've got all your invoices there, you can show that you used it in your business. And you mentioned earlier having a separate bank account for your business, a separate credit card for your business. The chances of the tax office striking something out are far, far lower. Often logbooks, things like, you know, private use of a commercial property, or even like a holiday house that you might have as part of your investments. Those are the things where the tax office will go through it with a fine-tooth comb.
Now, each year the tax office puts out a hit list of things they're really focusing on. In terms of business deductions, what's their focus this year?
Always the private use. So it really is like you see people trying to claim private school fees or maybe a holiday trip overseas, and they really want to know, well, how did that go towards the business? And of course, there are big penalties if you get that one wrong. And finally, if you sell your business, so capital gains tax, if you've done any restructuring or changed how you're operating, they're some of the things the ATO will look at.
Okay, so selling the business, how should you approach that to really minimise or pay what's necessary rather than over?
So it's about setting up the structure well at the start. So if you've got aspirations to really go corporate or to bring in some partners, that's where your advisor can tell you this is what will work for you. Whereas as an individual, it becomes a lot harder, for example, to actually exit the business because you can't sell yourself. So I think it really is around, you know, where do you want this to go? And also, you might start off just selling things at a market or selling things online. And all of a sudden you realise, hey, I've got a bit of turnover here. I'm making a little bit of money.
Which is terrific.
That's it. And so you go into your accountant and you say, well, hey, this is a lot bigger than I thought. I really want to invest. And then they can give you some advice on those structures as well.
So is it better to err on the side, if you like, of that optimistic outlook into the future, even though you're struggling to get it going? Think big and make sure that foundation is set right from the start.
Isn't that every small business owner's dream? You know, you want to make something big, so why not aim high? And your accountant, like you said, as part of the team, can help you get there.
Yeah. What about losses? within your business and writing off debts at this time of year?
So there are some businesses that do have losses, and so what you have are what are called revenue losses. So that's when you earn less income than you spend, and so they can be carried forward. Up until this year, they also have a loss carryback. So again, if you go to your accountant with a taxable loss, they can see whether they can get some tax back from previous years for you.
Because everyone's got clients through this environment that aren't paying and they're well overdue. So make sure you meet the criteria and get the advice before you write it off.
Yep.
All right. Elinor, we'll be back very shortly. After the break, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, we'll be back with more tax tips from Elinor. Welcome back to Kochie's Business Builders. Now, red tape is a bugbear of many small business owners. In fact, keeping up with all the latest tax regulations and compliances can be a real burden. Elinor, what would you say are the most common frustrations that business owners face in terms of tax red tape?
It's just the volume of it. So because tax is everywhere, we have GST, we have withholding, we have super, we have income tax. It's how do you actually, once again, stay on the right side of the tax office? And that's just tax. Think about all of the other regulations. Once again, when you're starting out in business, it's that step-by-step approach. But what I recommend is go to an expert who does it for lots of businesses every day. If you have a niche industry, go and talk to someone who specialises in that industry because they'll know the ins and outs of it. And go digital. So once you start to get the software and the systems in place, all your numbers, all your receipts, all your invoices start to fall into place, and you can do almost the dream is one-touch reporting where you press a button and it all goes through.
How do you build that team of advisors, finding a good bookkeeper and then also an accountant that you can build a rapport with that understands your business or your industry and the nuances of it?
I guess it's like finding perhaps your GP that works for you. So, and it's always okay to get a second opinion. Quite often in certain areas, there'll be trusted advisors who might be recommended to you. But once again, accountants, tax agents come in all shapes and sizes. So it's about finding the one that fits best for you. Because I think the other thing is it shouldn't just be at tax time to do the tax return. It's an ongoing conversation throughout all of the years of your business and throughout each month when you've got something due.
Because a lot of business owners forget, look, you're in business to build an asset that builds your personal wealth. The link between your personal financial progress and your business is linked. Is it worthwhile getting the same advisor to do both?
It can be. Once again, it really depends on what your goals are. So you may be in a very specialist industry with specialised tax things, and so you want an advisor for that, but your personal wealth might be something different. And once again, it really depends on who you're looking to get advice from and who you click with. So quite often, you know, being aspirational, a growing business owner will maybe have a separate financial advisor. They might have a lawyer, a bookkeeper and a tax agent, and those can be different people. So it really depends on what you're looking for.
And the fees are all deductible too, aren't they?
All the fees are deductible as part of your business.
You know, because a lot of business owners, I can't afford an accountant with, you know, paying X dollars an hour. But it pays off, doesn't it? And takes the stress out of your life so you can focus on what you do best, running your business. Where, unless you're a bookkeeper or an accountant, you don't start your business to be good at tax.
That's right. None of us ever start going like, let's become tax accountants. But yeah, I think it's having someone in your corner. And accountants are great because they want profit. They want you to succeed. You know, it's in their interest for your business to do well.
If you get a knock on the door from the tax office and an audit, that your red flag comes up on the computer, what do you do?
So the first thing is around what are your records? What has actually gone through your tax accounts? And so I would probably be calling my tax agent because over 95% of Australian businesses use one. And it's really understanding what is the ATO looking at, what have they picked up on, and what have you actually declared, and do you have the records to support it? The ATO will not start with a hard-nosed approach. What they're really doing is saying, you flagged on us, maybe your profit is lower than other people who look like you. What's going on? And so you really want to have that open conversation with them to say, well, what is it that you're asking about? What can I show you to reassure you that it's the right amount of tax?
Elinor, you've been so informative and so comforting today. Thank you so much for joining us. Some terrific strategies and ideas for us to adopt at this time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Remember, if you're looking for small business tips or the latest news or general tax advice from tax experts, you can find them all online at kochiesbusinessbuilders.com.au or follow Kochie's Biz on Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta and Twitter. We'll see you next time. Next week on Kochie's Business Builders, we grab a cuppa with a leadership expert. Why empathy is your new business superpower and how culture is the key to business success.